Charles Cornell is a jazz pianist and a YouTuber who has amassed over 1.8 million subscribers. His content is generally around education and reacting to pieces explaining them, not dissimilar to my own content, but he also occasionally has videos of him performing. And in today's video, I'm going to react to it. So let's get into it. Now, I believe Charles actually built his audience originally by accompanying viral memes.
None of you bitches, none of you bitches got these exclusive Swisher Sweets hugs. What's poppin'? Ow! Ow!
What is poppin'? Yeah, so because Charles is a jazz pianist predominantly, I think he probably does play some classical as well. But he's really able to be creative with the harmony that he chooses for this. Obviously, when someone is speaking or shouting, like Cardi B is in this video, if he's trying to find the pitch that she's kind of talking at, it's not always going to be in a conventional scale. And as a jazz pianist, that's kind of like a puzzle to solve. Because in jazz music, you use such weird and kind of spread chords that no matter what note Cardi B is saying, I suppose, he'll be able to find a chord that fits that. Incredibly impressive though, and probably quite difficult to do.
No pomegranates! No pomegranates! No! I don't want them anywhere near here. Am I clear? Say the rule again. No pomegranates! Say it. No pomegranates.
Yeah, I mean, he must have invested a lot of time into each one of these clips. I don't know, maybe I should try this myself.
I am not speaking to you. I'm speaking to you. I'm looking at you. I am not speaking to you. I'm speaking to you. I'm looking at you.
I mean, that's just a small clip and nowhere near as good as Charles's, so it's pretty impressive. Now, the reason that I decided to do a Charles Cornell video in December is because a lot of his playing is actually Christmas pieces. Yeah, it's really nice. It's interesting because when I studied at the music conservatoire that I studied at, although I studied as a classical pianist, we did do maybe a 12-week course on jazz. And in that particular course, the instructor said most people who are learning jazz try and play as many notes as possible, both when they are playing chords and also when soloing. But a lot of the time, jazz is about trying to leave a lot of space in the music, which I think you can see really clearly here. I mean, he's leaving loads of space in the music and just letting it breathe so that it creates an atmosphere. And I think that is exactly what makes it feel Christmassy and really warm. It's just really relaxing. Yeah, it's really interesting. So a lot of the time when you play pieces like this, there's a sort of standard chord structure that you expect to hear. So you get something like, in this case, D, B minor, G, and then A. But what makes jazz music and the ability to improvise around certain pieces like this so interesting is that occasionally you can throw in some chords that make sense but kind of throw you off slightly. So it gives you that kind of eyebrow moment where it's kind of interesting to listen to. So you might get something like the standard chord sequence, D, B minor, G, A. But then you might do something like D, A minor with a C in the bass, B flat, 7, major 7, and then A7. And then you can go back to D. Adding weird chords that aren't necessarily in that same D major scale is what makes jazz music so interesting, because you can kind of veer off into lots of different landscapes. And it's also something that I can tell Charles is thinking about. Instead of thinking about what chords can I use in D major, is thinking about where can I go that's interesting. That's a very good example of that. His chord choicing and voicing as well is super interesting, because, I mean, a lot of this music is going to be 2-5-1s, which is chord 2 in the scale, chord 5 in the scale, and then chord 1 in the scale. And in this case, that's E minor, A, and then D. But choosing to voice it in kind of it makes it so much warmer and nice to listen to, especially when he doesn't just play the standard chords and he plays 7s, 9s, 11s, those kind of things. So you get like an E minor chord with some extra notes, which makes it sound particularly jazzy. So 4 years ago, Charles also made a video improvising, I assume, on a piano that he'd been given. Yeah, I really like the way that he kind of sits in the pocket. That's something actually I find quite difficult to do in jazz, is to create that kind of... doing that kind of thing while improvising. Kind of finding that groove is quite a difficult thing to do, but I suppose once you've got it, you're kind of sitting in it. It's a little bit like for rappers who are trying to find their flow. It's why I think the rapper Harry Mack is so good at what he does when he improvises raps using words that people give him.
Into it. Every time I rhyme, y'all know I'ma lift them up high. Can't no rapper in the game really spit like this guy.
Because he's able to kind of find the rhythm and sit in it, very much like Charles with jazz playing. Yeah, it's very good. I mean, you can tell his scales that he's using in the right hand is thinking around the chords that he's using, which is a very jazz thing to do. When you play a chord, that kind of dictates which scale or scales that you play. But then when you change chord, it changes the available scales that you can play in. Whereas for a classical pianist like myself, we tend to think very much scale first, and then the chords are a part of that scale, rather than the chords changing which scales you can use. So for example, if I play a piece that's in the key of C major is the overarching scale, and then there are chords that are in C major. Whereas for a jazz pianist, they might play a piece that's in C major, but when they play a D minor chord, they'll play a D minor scale or a D minor blues scale, or they'll play a modal scale that works with that specific chord. And then when they change chords, they have new scales available. That's why jazz solos sound so free and flexible, because they're constantly moving and using different keys depending on what chords have been played. And then on top of that, you're not just playing basic chords, you're playing 7s, 11s, flat 9s, you know, those kind of things. Now, Charles actually made a video about a year and a half ago now, which is called I'm Not Good at Piano Anymore.
I make videos about music, and I use the piano to show you things that I think are cool about music theory. But despite the years of playing professionally and the hundreds of videos that I've made, there is one huge detail I've been keeping from you. Even with all of the performing and all of the teaching and all of the videos, I just haven't practiced the piano, like at all, in a decade.
So that's super interesting, and I imagine many players who have practiced a lot in their past will relate to the feeling of not being very good anymore because you haven't practiced properly for a long time. I certainly relate to that because I practice nowhere near as much now as I did when I was studying and when I was in peak performance mode. But to me, that doesn't mean you are any less good than you once were, because the knowledge that you have doesn't go. And I think the reason that we get good at the piano is to be able to learn the pieces that we want to learn. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to know them right now. And no doubt if Charles wanted to sit down and learn any piece, he could do it. He just hasn't been doing it. It doesn't mean that he's not good at the piano, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I think musicians and artists often suffer from this thing of like never liking your own work. And no matter how seasoned you are, or if you're just starting out, there's always that feeling of knowing what we could be doing and acknowledging that we're just not doing it.
I think it goes without saying that Charles is a very competent player. From all of his reaction videos, finding interesting theory within different genres of music, you can tell that he understands music very well. And I know, based on the fact that he has over 1.8 million subscribers, that a lot of people appreciate his analysis. If you want to see my reaction to Stephen Ridley, who is a pianist who a lot of people don't appreciate, then head on through and I will see you there.